The Mark I Marshall BluesBreaker is one of the most important overdrive pedals when it comes to John Mayer's tone. This pedal having a very specific and key role in the tones of the Continuum era and of course Where the Light Is. However, at the end of the Battle Studies era in about 2010, the Marshall BluesBreaker was ditched in favor of the Klon Centaur as John's light overdrive pedal of choice. And ever since the Battle Studies era concluded, we haven't seen that Marshall BluesBreaker return to John's live rig. Well, until now in 2023 with Dead & Company. At the Atlanta show with Dead & Company, we actually saw the Mesa Boogie Flux 5 get ditched for a pedal that definitely has that very distinct silhouette of those early Mark I Marshall pedals. That's right, one of the most fabled overdrive pedals when it comes to Mayer's sound has returned to his pedal board. Now you guys are looking at the exact same shots of his rig that I am, and while we don't get a point blank look at the pedal where you can actually read the word BluesBreaker on it, out of all of the original Marshall pedals, there was only one, being the BluesBreaker, that has 3 knobs on it. So this is without a doubt a Marshall BluesBreaker. There's just nothing else it could be. However, the one part that's interesting about this is that earlier this year, at the time of making this video, at least during the 2023 final Dead & Company tour, is that Marshall did actually reissue the original Marshall BluesBreaker. So we can't say for certain that this is actually one of the original 1990s versions. This very well could be a reissue that Mayer is trying out. We just have no way of knowing without any actual confirmation or maybe a shot of the board. But even then, the enclosures are, from what I know, completely identical. So there might never be a way for us to even tell now if John is using an original or a reissue without some direct confirmation from someone within John's camp or John himself. Now, this is honestly such big news in the John Mayer gear community, at least, because that original Marshall BluesBreaker sound is so heavily associated with Continuum, and therefore Where the Light Is kind of the quintessential John Mayer era, containing what a lot of people believe to be one of his best sounds and tones, if not his best tones ever. Now, to see it return for Dead & Company is a little weird, just because you wouldn't normally associate the BluesBreaker sound with Dead & Company being the very last tour and already a few shows in. Kind of interesting that this pedal has kind of taken a place on the pedal board when you would really associate it with a lot of John's older tones. And the fact that it replaced the Mesa Boogie Flux 5, which is just an absolutely brilliant overdrive pedal that is insanely flexible with that 5-band EQ and the 2 different gain stages on the pedal as well. You're really trading a very flexible pedal that you can really tweak and fine-tune to get the exact overdrive sound you want for just a lot more of a basic rudimentary design with that Marshall BluesBreaker with only 3 knobs on it. That all said, the one thing I wouldn't do is rush onto Reverb right now and buy a Marshall BluesBreaker original version or one of the reissues that people are just scalping and essentially asking a lot more for just because they have one right now and they're sold out everywhere. Marshall is making more of them. You can go on Sweetwater right now and pre-order one of them. I'm not sure how long it's going to take to get in stock, but you can get it for a very affordable price. And that also could be a reason that John has gone back to the Marshall BluesBreaker as well. With him, we know he really doesn't like the Mayer tax that gets put on things that get associated with him using it, like the BluesBreaker, for example. John being one of the key people associated with that pedal and kind of helping to build the hype behind it with him using it and it being such a key part of the tones of Continuum. Maybe the fact that Marshall's reissued it and it's affordable and it is accessible, maybe not exactly right now, but in the future once they get in stock again, maybe that's part of the reason why he's using it again as well, because people can finally have that pedal for really easy prices, more or less, and him using it shouldn't really drive up the prices when it's something like right now you can just go ahead and pre-order. And hopefully Marshall keeps making the BluesBreaker reissue because it's just going to keep selling insanely well, especially if John is using it again. People will want that pedal for a relatively affordable price, even though there are lots of great BluesBreaker clones out there. This is a really great option if you want the look, and the exact same thing from Marshall, built in the UK as well, designed like the original version John had as well. So there could just be something to that as well, where John's like, okay, there's a reissue out now, people can get it, people aren't going to have listings, hopefully, where they throw John Mayer's name in it on Reverb, and maybe he just decided, maybe I'll give it a shot again and use it. That's also another possibility. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud a little bit here, but with stuff John has said before and that reissue being a thing now, you can't help but wonder if there is some sort of association even that way with it. There is a lot of crossover with the gear that John uses in Dead & Company and during his own tours for his own main tones as well. That said, just because he's using a pedal on a board for Dead & Company does not mean it's a guarantee that we will see it for an upcoming board for his own stuff as well. But just the fact that he kind of thought to bring it out and use it and actually like the sounds he was getting out of it enough to put it on a pedal board, at least for a few shows, because that was the other thing. I debated waiting to see if he would use it for a few more shows other than the one, and he has. So it means he's clearly liking the sounds he's getting out of it for it to stay on and not just be a one-time thing. If it was a one-time thing on the pedal board and off again, it'd be kind of like, okay, well, that was cool, I guess, but doesn't really mean anything. He still obviously isn't really into the BluesBreaker thing, at least at the moment. But a few shows later, it's still on the pedal board. So that kind of leads, or gives it a little bit more to the theory or the hunch that maybe we might see the BluesBreaker make an eventual return. Another thing that is really interesting is that John hasn't really done a full cold turkey away from Marshall BluesBreaker since the Battle Studies era. Although we haven't seen it used on one of his pedal boards since that era, there is one shot, I believe it was from the 2017 World Tour's rehearsals, where John actually had an original Marshall BluesBreaker out as part of just a variety of pedals that he was testing for the upcoming tour. Now, if I can find that shot somewhere, I've already been looking for quite a while and I can't find it, I'll put it up on the screen. But if I can't, you guys just trust me on this, that John has definitely flirted with the idea of bringing the Marshall BluesBreaker back, probably more than just that one time, but this is the first time we've actually seen him commit and put it on a pedal board. I am just very curious now to see what the upcoming pedal boards will be like for John's upcoming tours. The solo tour is kind of its own thing, and you only really hear lead guitar, electric guitar for one, maybe two songs a night. So those pedal boards are kind of their own thing, and I don't really read too much into them, if I'm being honest. But once the new album is out and the next tour begins, that is when it'll be very interesting to see if that BluesBreaker does make a return, because some of John's best tones, in my opinion, were with that Marshall BluesBreaker. Not that his tones have been bad by any means without it, but it just is kind of some of that old school, early, mid to late 2000s John Mayer's sound you just kind of associate with that Marshall BluesBreaker, from heavier things, bypass the John Mayer trio really, but then into the Continuum era, and then of course the Battle Studies era as well. The BluesBreaker played such an important role for a lot of those sounds, especially the way it gain stacked with the TS10. Just such a great overdrive tone that you really associate with that pedal. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll see it make a return, but I'm also not going to be surprised if we see it for a couple more shows on this Dead & Company tour, and then it's gone again. And then we might never see him use it again. Who knows, but at this point, I just think it's really cool that it's on his board. And it's made somewhat of a return, but not a full return yet. Once it's on his main board for his main tour and main tones again outside of Dead & Company, then we can say the Marshall BluesBreaker has officially made a grand return. And until then, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below when it comes to the Marshall BluesBreaker, the tones John got with it, your thoughts of him using it with Dead & Company, maybe some theories, or if you have any ideas of maybe some BluesBreaker style sounds you're hearing from some of the Dead & Company footage we've gotten from the past few shows. That'd be really interesting to maybe figure out exactly what he's using it for with Dead & Company right now. And if you're hopeful that it'll come on his pedal board in the future as well, let me know in the comments down below as well. But as always, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. So take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.